been kind of out of the loop of late, and I am totally clueless of what's going on these days. I've been surrounded by these same four walls day in and day out for quite a while now. But I recently found out, within the last few days, about Charles Taze Russell's pyramid in Allegheny, Pennsylvania. You know, the pyramid that was right next to his gravesite. For some odd reason, Watchtower decided to remove it. Well, it's no surprise that Watchtower likes to rewrite its history by making things disappear or totally rewriting it. Let's face it, we all know they've been doing that with their publications for years. As a matter of fact, I do recall one time, because I used to adopt the older literature, and I was advised not to read it. Couldn't understand why. Now I do. But at the time, it wasn't so imperative like it is today that they destroy their older literature. They finally pushed that issue in recent years, because when they want things to disappear, they want things to disappear. And to say that Watchtower doesn't lie about its history is BS. We all know what happened in '75. You let enough decades go by and you sweep it under the rug long enough, and you can change history. They actually got the current crop of witnesses thinking it was their fault. We read into it wrong. When no, the literature of that era most certainly did say that the end was coming in '75. See, I don't throw things away. But I lost my train of thought, guys. I am absolutely brain dead. But this was primarily the reason that they removed the pyramid. See, they let enough few generations go by, a few decades, enough old-timers die, and they can actually have the witnesses believing that that was more apostate lies. There was never a pyramid there. And the Jehovah's Witnesses will believe it. This is one thing that's always insulted me, was how stupid they speak to you when you're in there. And they actually do treat Jehovah's Witnesses like dumbass little children. And they're okay with that. That always got under my skin. Especially when you know you saw something and they try so hard to convince you that you didn't. I do recall some years back. Now, I was never a fan of JW Broadcasting. We had 5 meetings a week, so why do we need to sit in front of a screen and watch JW Broadcasting? We're going to hear the same BS at the meetings anyways. But nonetheless, do you remember when that first came out? I think it was 2010. The witnesses went all gaga over it like it was the greatest thing going. And to be honest with you, I've seen a few of them. They really suck. Well, there was an issue some years later. Now, one of the witnesses at my hall, he was so pro-Watchtower, you would not get him to say anything negative about Watchtower. And apparently he noticed something during the broadcast, which this surprised me. He mentioned that some of the governing body members were wearing Masonic rings. I actually didn't think he knew what they were, but he was all upset about it and he mentioned it. Now, I wasn't sure about it myself at the time. Now, I didn't have a computer, so I never watched JW Broadcasting, but I made a point to the next month, and damned if he wasn't right. I got a close-up of it, and yeah, they definitely were Masonic rings. The sorry thing is, a couple of years later, when basically he denied ever saying such a thing. Like, dude, you're the one that pointed it out. But he also pointed out the fact that sometime in 2015, they stopped wearing them. Oh, it's okay, they stopped wearing them. Oh, I guess that makes everything okay now. Well, this goes along with the literature. They figured they could hide the rings long enough that everybody would forget. The problem was, apparently more than a few witnesses noticed those rings. Much like the Dick songbook some years back. Do you remember that? That was the funniest thing I had ever heard. Now, I never thought much of the songs. The Kingdom melodies were god-awful. They really were. And they announced that they were coming out with a new songbook. And they all went, yay! And they're all happy as shit. And it's like, God, all the gagas got gooey. And I'm like, what the hell? It wasn't a month, 2 months later, that they asked you to bring the old songbooks back. Apparently there was a misprint or a mistake in them. Well, I had several of them, so I never brought anything back. What was mine. I kept it. Now, I didn't know the reason why at the time. As a matter of fact, I didn't know until I started watching Kim and Mikey a few years later. Come to find out, on the back cover was a big dick. And apparently more than 1 or 2 people had spotted it, because that was why they recalled it and they wanted to make it disappear. Come to find out that much of their literature was loaded with perverted satanic images. See, when that came out, people started keeping their eyes open for it, and they started spotting it more and more and more. And this is why they are so hell-bent on hiding their history now, as opposed to just casting aside and rewriting it. Now they literally have to hide it. But they're not counting on people holding on to these things. Do you remember the old Proclaimers book? That was better than any apostate material against Watchtower going. There was so much information in that that could show the hypocrisy of that organization. And that was one reason they did away with that some years back. But it wasn't too long ago that many JWs still had it. But this basically was the reason why they are discarding the pyramid. They figured enough time will go by that they can actually keep the JWs dumbed down. And the funny thing is, there'll be many JWs in there that know that pyramid was there, but will go along with it all the same. Oh yeah, it was never there. Jehovah's Witnesses, aren't you getting so tired of being spoken to like children? I could only take that for so long before I had to get the hell out of there. When I know I saw something, there is no way in hell you're going to convince me otherwise. But this is what they do to you, much like they did with 1975, much like what they did with the Dick Book, and much like they do with all their literature and their entire history. They like to change it. JWs, keep your eyes open. You're being had by these idiots. Anyways, guys, I'm going to do further research on that if I can find the time to find out exactly why they removed that pyramid. But that's my take on it. Guys, I may be a little slow at getting to your comments. I do not have a whole lot of free time, but I will get to them all the same. I hope to be back soon. You guys have a good day.